very possible. Very possible. You can never achieve the gods. Impossible. You could never deceive the gods. Impossible. Call an ambulance. Jimmy the shot. Oh, don't go there. You don't motherfucking heart. The ambulance is taking too long. Excuse me, bitch. Give me the shot.
Where did that come from?
Take forever. You could never deceive the gods. Impossible. You could never deceive the gods. Impossible. Deceive the gods. Impossible. All right, there we go. That's one for the soul and the hip hop generation, bridging the gap. One bar at a time. So what do you
One
got?
bar at a time. I don't have anything.
Got nothing on the docket?
Nope. Waiting on Joe. Waiting on Joe. In the meantime, I'm just reading. Well, teaching myself how to read.
Teaching yourself? Does Joe know that you're doing that?
What?
Teaching yourself how to read?
Nope.
I won't tell him.
Yeah, I'm teaching myself how to read now. It's pretty tough. It's pretty tough.
What do you want all that reading for anyway?
You know, I hadn't given it much thought. It's not a lot because it's difficult for me. Anything over 2 syllables,
Yeah.
I just kind of skip over. I mean, I'm sounding stuff out as best I can.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'm skipping over 2 syllable stuff. For the most part.
You just said syllables, so that was good.
Yeah, I was speaking, not reading.
Well, I guess that's the trick. You gotta make it so no one can tell what's what.
Well, you know. Don't record.
Say what?
Don't record.
Don't record? Okay. Joey has entered. Should I record now or no?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Yo, Joe.
Joey's back in Cali.
What up, Joe?
What up? I'm back.
Chilling? I've gone
What?
dark.
What?
I've
Joey
gone
is
dark
back
mode.
in Cali.
That I am. So what did I miss?
Nothing. We were just chilling until you came in.
All right, cool.
We just decided to chill until, Joe came back. You were saying you had some thoughts.
Yeah, I really think like what we were talking about with Facebook, like I thought it was interesting you were saying that now enough time has passed over the past decade that you really can't know people on the basis of their social media. Yeah. And I think what's interesting about that in a way is oh, sorry, I'm getting this weird feedback noise on my video now. I'm hearing my voice feedback. Check. Sorry, oh, it's gone now. Okay. But are you still there?
I am.
Oh, yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, cool. Yeah. But what I think is interesting is that for a lot of people, and I guess this is more true for people who are younger, although not entirely, because there are some older people who live on Twitter too. But I feel like a lot of people, rather than revealing themselves through social media, sometimes get defined by social media. Like I think about people who just live on Twitter and are so invested in one political faction or another that they get into these completely petty disagreements that mean nothing to people outside of Twitter, and they'll just repost things without critically engaging it. They'll sort of seek social acceptance, seek validation from people they want to be like, and lose their sense of self. And I feel that happened to me for a while. Like there was a time in which I think I convinced myself on some level that I was a person that I wasn't, because I needed validation, and I didn't really even want to admit that at the time. But I've like over the past 3 or 4 years, I've gone through a process of, slowly shedding that and trying to, regain my sense of self and remember who I am. I mean, I feel like, I feel like social media can destroy people. It can turn you into sort of a micro-targeted demographic, so that it's not only you informing the algorithm. I feel like the algorithm in a way becomes you, and I know it probably sounds like pseudo deep or something, so I don't know, but I probably probably
No, I follow.
What?
I follow you.
Oh, cool.
I see
Yeah,
what
no,
you're saying. People can get, it can become their persona,
definitely, yeah.
where it may not really be their persona, right? Like they begin to tailor make their self to, people aren't, in a lot of cases, leaving their houses and being, physically interactive with other people, right? And,
Yeah.
On social media, you can talk to people all over the world. You can interact with a large audience in minutes. You know what I mean? So I think on some level, people can be caught up in a situation where they begin to build a persona on social media based upon you know, like you said, you know what I mean, validation, or, you know, whatever the case may be, you know. So I follow you. I definitely follow you.
Yeah, and I think that has had very destructive impacts on our politics and culture and everything, because I feel like people don't even engage with each other anymore. And like, what? Yeah, I'm not a fan of, the idea of cancel culture in the way it was framed in that Harper's article, but I do have a major problem with the extent to which people will just, not even think critically anymore. They'll just, like someone, there's no accountability. Someone can just, have a certain number of followers and tweet something and basically say, "Don't at me," and I'll block you if you disagree with me. And people who are in a political faction just treat them like they're the Pope or they're anointed on high, and it's really depressing in a way. I feel like yeah, I mean, I hope we get away with that. And my voice is kind of feeding back right now, so I don't know if I'm coming through completely,
Yeah,
but
you're coming through clear to us.
good. So yeah, I'm glad, I'm really glad we have this show, because I feel like we have an interesting recurring cast of characters, and we, generally tend to be in the same political ballpark, but are all slightly different. And I think, also all have different passions, and it just really makes for an interesting kind of eclectic show.
I agree. I agree. I I I actually, before because I was gonna say something, but I just want to give Mike an opportunity to weigh in.
Mike, are
Yeah,
you there?
yeah. What's good?
I
Hello.
was just wanted to give you an opportunity to weigh in before I, you know.
Oh, what's the question?
There is no question. You have the floor. This is just a comment. Just a comment, if you wanted to, on anything that we've been saying.
Um, well, let's see.
What's the question?
Yes, no, maybe. So I don't know. Can you repeat the question?
Earth to Mike, you must be on the caretaker's planet right now.
Yes, the caretaker's plan. That is correct.
We're on Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah, man. What were you doing the last couple minutes, man? Sleeping?
I was probably meditating.
Oh, so you were sleeping. That's your glorified way of saying. Like, everybody out there in YouTube land, y'all caught him red-handed.
Uh, meditation is
I challenge you not to edit this.
oh yeah, I won't have it.
What's the question? Stop it. So, okay, we're
That was
just gonna.
actually a deep philosophical question I was positing.
Oh yeah. So it isn't. It's like a what's the meaning of life?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Joe, I agree with you. Like, I totally agree with you. I think the dynamic is awesome. Actually,
Great.
actually. So I definitely agree. I think everybody brings something different to the table. It's Mike when he's awake, when he's not meditating, for sure. You mentioned something though that I saw you mention as well on Facebook, which I don't know. Like, I don't know what it is. I think it's something significant. So I was curious if you could elaborate on it when you mentioned the Harper paper.
Sure. Harper's Magazine recently came out with a letter that was basically lambasting what they describe as cancel culture, which, I do think is a concept that has some validity. But the problem with the Harper's letter is it was just too broad. I feel like they grouped too many different topics together, all of which are very different, like academic freedom on one hand, just this vague idea of canceling people, and I feel like they didn't really go specifically into what they were talking about because it's a very complex topic, and I'm hesitant to just say something about it off the top of my head because I mean this is the kind of thing that I have very nuanced thoughts on. I don't want to say it wrong, so I won't go too deep into it. But basically, I think that in this particular instance, they were talking. I think that what inspired it the most was the recent backlash against J.K. Rowling for making some very transphobic statements, and it was a backlash from her fans and people. I mean, I like the Harry Potter books, but and I've liked books by people with far worse politics than J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, I like Orson Scott Card.
Yeah, I like. I like H.P. Lovecraft. And but the thing is, he's not alive.
Yeah, he's not alive.
J.K. Rowling is alive.
Scott Card is alive.
Yeah, and they're using they're using their platforms, or at least J.K. Rowling is now. She's using her platform to make bigoted statements, and Harper's Magazine, instead of just having the guts to come out and say, they think transphobia is a legitimate opinion. Which, if they had said that, they wouldn't have gotten half the signatories they got. Like, they got Noam Chomsky to sign it, who I think Noam Chomsky is a good guy. He's someone I respect deeply, but I think he signed it for misguided reasons. Because if they had just come out.
What exactly did he sign?
He signed he signed a letter, and the letter, I'm sorry if I'm not being clear, the letter just made a big a bunch of broad sweeping statements about cancel culture as it related to academic freedom, partly as it related just to this vague concept of the marketplace of ideas, just the idea that we should debate controversial topics. But really what had inspired it was, the backlash against J.K. Rowling. And I feel that whoever drafted the letter was just too cowardly to admit that, essentially that's what it was about, and that essentially they think, people shouldn't have the right to choose not to support someone who's a bigot. And by doing this in response to, J.K. Rowling being transphobic, it stands to reason, if a writer was using their platform to be racist, to be anti-Semitic, to be homophobic, would you say those are legitimate opinions? They don't have the guts to say they basically think one form of bigotry is more acceptable than another.
So I have some thoughts, and I'll probably say not necessarily what you wanted to say, but I'll give my thoughts on it without any hesitancy. And listen, if people have a problem with it, not you guys, but people who are going to be listening, if they have a problem with it, then by all means construct the cross. Because I have some thoughts. You know what I mean? I feel some type of way. First of all, I certainly think cancel culture is like a pejorative thing, right? Like, I think it was coined. I think the term was coined, and I could be wrong, but I feel like it was coined by conservatives towards,
I think so as well, yeah.
liberals. So first, let me cover J.K. Rowling, right? And this may be a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. I'm not transphobic. I'm an ally of the LGBTQ community. So J.K. Rowling has been described as a super feminist that discriminates against trans women. These are some of the, this is a description that I've, can you guys hear me?
I do, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. This is the description that I've heard people use, you know, regarding J.K. Rowling. So I read her tweets a few days ago. I read everything. I read her response and then her deletion to of, you know, Stephen King, and or Stephen King deleting. You know, I read all of her stuff, and then I read what she said. And you know, I like to look at things in black and white and kind of, you know, remove emotion from it. And then me and Mike have had this argument, and then, you know, I'll start filling in color. You understand what I'm saying? But
I do, yeah.
I like to examine it just in black and white. So in black and white, I understand. Now, in black and white, we have what she said, right? That's what we have in black and white. Then as we start to add, we have on the one hand how it made people feel. Then on the other hand, we have her explanation as to why she said what she said and what she meant. So from that perspective, when I start to add color, my conclusion is I don't hold what J.K. Rowling said against her. I looked for reasons to do so, and I just couldn't find any based upon why she said what she said. Excuse me, why she said what she said. Now, she said what she said, not because she has a problem inherently or has anything against trans women. She said, from her perspective, some things from just in her head, in her opinion, which may be due just to her lack of understanding, that the idea of trans women on some level detracts from the plight of women throughout history. And I get the feeling what she means is, so if a man becomes a woman or is a woman and is considered, you know, a trans woman, is he now as much of a victim as women have been, actual women? And I hate to even use that term, actual women, because like, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? But just for the purposes of the conversation and not my beliefs or what have you, just for lack of a better word. You know, you understand what I'm saying? You know,
I do understand.
You know, and that perspective was, and she even, you know, goes on to say, not talk about these things, you know, like, is it a crime to even have these conversations? You know, like, how do we get to a point where we understand one thing or another if we're not and have dialogue about it? So that her intentions weren't malicious. You understand what I'm saying? Like, she
I totally
wasn't
understand, yeah.
She didn't make these statements because her intention was to be malicious and be, you know what I mean? Her perspective was a thoughtful perspective, whether we agree or not. Like, these are the things, this is a conclusion I had, because I had to remove emotion, right? In order for me to really kind of give my judgment of the situation. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, well, I don't see this as, and she's saying as much, you know, based upon her explanation, I don't see that this is malicious. You understand what I'm like? Her intention is to be malicious. Yes, it probably hurt people and made people feel some type of way, for sure. And I don't discount that. But given what she said, all she's really doing is exploring these ideas, and she's using her platform to explore and talk about these concepts. But then cancel culture kicks in. You get a bunch of people who aren't really willing to rap that way, and not person a benefit of a doubt and just be like, you know what she said is, you know, it sucks, and cancel her. And it's like, well, wait a minute. What she's really doing is exploring and trying to understand this particular, you know, these are her thoughts. Her thoughts are, what I have been through as a woman, someone who was born a woman and identifies, who was born physically as a woman and identifies as a woman. What we have gone throughout, and the social construct. But when it comes to oppression, right, women are the favorite flavor of oppression. And throughout history, someone who was born a male who identifies as a woman has been oppressed. Haven't been oppressed because, man, they're still struggling to get right deserve. You understand what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
what I mean is, throughout history, women who, before we understood the concept, which is, we're talking the 70s, right, when we first started exploring the concept of gender being a social construct, before we really that concept became mainstream, women were absolutely oppressed throughout all of human history, right? Oppressors oppressed their women. You understand what I'm saying? So from that, if I put myself in her shoes to try to understand her argument, because I can't argue against her, if I argue her position as intimately as possible so that I can refine my own argument, right? Science, right? I have to, when I discover a thing or validate a thing, I have to work to disprove it before I can say, okay, this thing is true and accurate, right? I have to disprove my theories, or you know what I mean. And when I can't disprove it, then I and say, boom, this is the thing. You understand what I'm saying? So
I do understand.
So that, well, let me put myself in your shoes and argue your argument.
Yeah.
Let me try to understand where you're coming from so that I can refine my own argument. So when I put myself in her shoes, I'm like, okay, if I'm standing in your shoes and I just don't understand, not lying, but I understand certain things, and maybe my understanding is clouded by my experiences as someone who was born female and identifies as a woman, right?
Yeah.
Maybe my understanding is clouded by that, and so my conclusion is, can someone who is a trans woman not bear the burden, or does that transfer to them that we have all bared or borne throughout human history, which is generally what she's saying.
You're yeah, but you're kind of, I mean, I'm hearing most of what you're saying, but you're kind of cutting in and out, and it sounds like the mic is feeding back a bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this better?
That's better. Yeah. For now it's better. Let's just you keep going for a minute. I'll let you know if it's still better.
Okay. So yeah, that's what I gauged from what she was saying. And so
you're cutting out again.
All right, let me stop moving. That's what's going on.
All right.
So that's what I kind of gauged from what she was saying. So then for me to go into cancel culture, right? Which is that this may bother people. So I'm at odds. I'm really at odds because I think that liberals can be very emo. And what I mean is, I mean the negative aspect of being emotional to the point where it's almost irrational, right? Like, I don't even want to give you a benefit of a doubt. You think a certain way, you said something that's offensive. I want your job. I want your business. You understand what I'm saying? I want to take away your ability to like keep your head above water in society because you feel or think a certain way. Now,
well, this to me, and I think you might have cut out again, but I kind of got the idea of what you're saying. So there's, I have a lot of thoughts here. First is that I think, I think that this is why I feel like the issue has just been sort of that like a lot of different things have sort of been broadly inflated. Like, first of all, I do think there are a lot of people, a lot of liberals, a lot of people on the left who are juvenile and are too quick to, go try to get someone fired because they said, something offensive. And I don't support that necessarily. At times, maybe it depends on the context, but
Right.
I do think that I support professors, I support teachers, I support everyone having a strong labor union that defends their right to have a job. What I do not support is the idea that people, but beyond that, people who have opinions which people judge to be objectively wrong, or which people judge to be bigoted in some way, they don't deserve to not face social ostracization. And with J.K. Rowling, like hundreds of thousands of people responded to her, and I'm sure there was plenty who were using their free speech to respond. This is what sort of annoys me about the other side of this argument, is like a lot of times people will just say, oh, we're just having conversations, we're just bringing up controversial topics, and people get so emotional. We have a right to free speech, and it's like well, at least I'm not, and most reasonable people are not saying you don't have a right to freedom of speech, but the people who are criticizing you have that right also. And like I understand what you're saying about emotion, but for me, I guess I approach this issue the same way I approach all issues of civil rights and justice, which is basic empathy. I have multiple friends and family members who are trans, and they have dealt with hardship in their life,
Absolutely.
risking, being at risk of violence, just for trying to present as, as who it's in their nature to be, at risk of losing a job, the Trump administration taking away healthcare. So I can understand why that's not something, someone who is a millionaire author who is using a platform to promote bigoted views which are dehumanizing to people. I can understand why people would be upset about that. So I guess I kind of, look at it from the same perspective as James Baldwin, when he said, something to the effect of, we can disagree, but when, and still be friends, but when that disagreement comes to my basic humanity, that's where I draw the line. Like, I don't remember what the exact quote was, but it was something like that. And J.K. Rowling is just having, a conversation. I mean, there were people, just, 20 years ago who were just having a conversation about, homosexuality. There have been people, people who have thought racism, who have thought, anti-Semitism was just an opinion. Like, I still hear people today say, oh, what about, treat like they're just asking questions. And it just as a general principle, I just try to, stay away from, subjects that deny, that lead, that involve the potential to take away other people's rights who are already marginalized. I'm all for having conversations, and there are aspects of cancel culture that I don't like. But I just believe that at line has to be drawn at bigotry, and bigots need to be responded to. And I think a lot of what was dismissed as cancel culture in this instance might have just been people who were tweeting at her and saying the same, things that I've just said.
Well, see, for me, I'm hard pressed, right? Because I think bigotry has action involved, right? So
Yeah.
I know one of the things she expressed is that trans women aren't women. Now, so at what point are we not allowed to have a discussion about things that we don't understand?
Well, nobody's saying there can't be a discussion. I mean, she expressed an opinion and people responded to her. They offered their side of the opinion, and that's like I would never just refuse to engage with someone like that, but I would say quite clearly why I believe, you know, the views that they are pushing are wrong and are hateful, and like she and it's almost asymmetrical in a sense, because she is the one that's a millionaire author that has a platform with millions of viewers, and I mean with millions of followers, people who have made her a millionaire by buying her books. And you know, yeah, she does have a right to express her opinion, but they have every right to express their opinion
For sure.
as well. And they have less of a, you know, and they have less of an audience. So sometimes it helps to amplify and respond to things.
So I think though we're talking about two different things though, because I don't have a problem with anybody responding to her any more than I have a problem with her. Now, if you put it in the way that if you put it in the perspective that you put it in, where her words actually affect people's ability to live and be who they are, then that's something that, you know, I have a problem with. I don't know that that's the case outside of how it made people feel. You know, I mean, I just don't know. You know what I mean? Outside of how people felt because of what she believed, I definitely think it made people feel a certain way. I'm not going to discount that. Do I think it affected people's ability to live their life? No. Do I think it affected trans women's ability to be trans women or added to their oppression or their struggle? No. So, and that's just how I see it. So from that perspective, if it did not, then what are we asking her to do? Not believe what she believes, not explore her beliefs, not have a conversation about it so that maybe her understanding can change? Like, what are
Well,
we really?
that's what I think people were doing. I mean, maybe some people just hit the block button, but others probably, others probably did engage with her opinion, and that's the problem I feel with just sort of making these kinds of sweeping generalizations or sweeping statements about cancel culture, because it conflates, it like conflates the actions of millions of different people in a way. And yeah, and I feel that train, like, if someone is a trans person, I could understand them, not wanting to, get into debates about their, basic humanity, their basic rights with people. But at the same time, I do feel that other people, people who aren't necessarily personally invested in it do have a responsibility to challenge it. Like they would challenge any other bigotry. But and my problem is when people just express an opinion or say, I want to have a marketplace of ideas, or or you're canceling me. And sometimes they just loosely define canceling as people giving them what they want, which is to engage. So I guess that's why a lot of the times, I find it to be sort of a criticism that's that's leveled in bad faith. Like, I think there's a lot of times when people when people just say they want a discussion, but they don't really want a discussion. And I don't know that that's the case or not with J.K. Rowling, but ultimately, yeah, I mean, ultimately, you can't really just conflate the behavior of millions of people as one sort of amorphous mass of cancel culture.
But because I agree with you, but the problem is it's hard to determine when it's a just thing and when it's not. What I mean is it's hard to see the line. The line is blurred. And I don't know if that's a social media thing. I don't know if it's just, so I had a conversation with Mike the other day on one of our shows. I was talking about how when the owner of Chick-fil-A was interviewed and the statements that he made about whether he believed in homosexuality or not came out. And it speaks to what you said about people who don't have a personal investment having a responsibility to kind of pick up the torch, so to speak. So my Facebook feed was inundated with people who were saying that we need to boycott Chick-fil-A. And I didn't understand why. I didn't agree with what he said, but I didn't understand why you were asking me to boycott Chick-fil-A. So when I asked certain people why, they said because of what he believes. And I'm like, well, what does what he believe have to do with what he's doing or what they're doing as an organization? Oh, it doesn't, but we can't allow these type of beliefs to be prevalent in our society. Huh? What are you talking about? What do you mean? Like, and this bothered me because it was like, wait a minute. And me and Mike had a almost heated discussion about it because, my perspective was, well, I felt like, and this is why I say some negative aspects of cancel culture, because I think some things are very strategic. Like when you walk up to the CEO of a Christian organization that actually promotes itself by business model as being Christian, and you ask them what you believe about something, and you already know the answer.